the crossroads of our 60th birthday and beyond our 60th birthday, it's exciting to know that we have more choices than ever before. This is a time when many of us are taking stock of our lives and we contemplate what we are doing in our life and our work. This is a momentous rite of passage that can be initiated either willingly or what we perceive to be a crisis. It can be a conscious choice after much internal debate, or it can be triggered by a critical illness, employment termination, or any other condition that causes self doubt, uncertainty, and stress. My guest today brings an optimistic perspective to this life transition. Bruce Fleck is the creator of the crisis cure methodology. His work is built on the foundation of a PhD in psychology and a career in corporate marketing and management spanning 40 years. Bruce complements his work with certifications as a life coach and as a holistic cancer coach. In my conversation today with Bruce, we will explore how you can overcome crisis, making it a turning point for a better life and for setting a new direction in life after 60. Hello, Bruce. How are you doing today?
Awesome, Patricia. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Bruce, I understand that the crisis cure methodology focuses on life transition and the spectrum of discomfort, distress, and coping skills. Could you dive a little deeper into that whole concept for us?
Certainly. If we think about, first of all, the adult lifespan, it's doubled since in the last century. And so now we have adults living, certainly on average around 80, but many of us that live healthy lives can live longer than that. And it's just silly to think that we're not going to continue to grow and evolve and change during that period of time, just like we did when we were children. Just because our physical development slows down doesn't mean that our mental and emotional and spiritual development slows down. So we have these continual developmental challenges, and I think most of these life transitions occur when it's time to make a developmental change, just like going from an adolescent to a teenager or a teenager to a young adult.
Mhm.
There's a lot of challenge and change that goes on there, and as adults, we maybe forget that it what that's like, and then don't realize that we have a developmental challenge in front of us. And it may start as just like a little tap on the shoulder or whisper in our ear that it's time for a change, or maybe things should move on, or you're not just getting a little bored or feeling unhappy or maybe even trapped, to something as a whack on the head, like I have a new cancer diagnosis,
Mm,
or
okay.
I'm going to be losing my job. They're pushing me out of the company, or my spouse is asking for a divorce, or something major like that. So
Mm,
I look at transitions from the spectrum of the definition of a crisis is a situation or event that causes stress and has a lack of coping skills.
mhm,
So I see it as really a spectrum. If you're approaching a transition, if you've got a minimal amount of stress and you've got good coping skills to do it, then it's just going to be a minor life transition, right?
mhm,
If you've got a medium amount of stress and your coping skills are maybe okay, but need to develop a little bit further or learn some new things, then maybe that's a major life challenge that you're going through.
mhm,
And then if it's something big, then maybe that's a crisis where it's causing you to go into distress, and you just don't have coping skills to deal with it, or the stress and distress that you're feeling is blocking your coping skills from you accessing those and being able to use them in dealing with the situation. So it really is kind of a spectrum from something fairly minor that we can grow through to something major that we have to take a concerted effort to work on.
Can you give an example of that last part about where the it's crisis because we may have had the coping skills, but the stress at that time either diminishes our coping skills, or maybe we don't have the necessary coping skills. Can you give an example of that?
Yeah. Let's just say, for example, that we have a new health diagnosis, and that could be cancer, it could be an autoimmune disease, it could be diabetes or a heart disease or something like that.
Mhm.
And when we get that diagnosis, it we have to go through the grief process. Most of us should be familiar with the 5 stages of grieving, and it was developed around the loss of a loved one. But
Mhm.
when we get this kind of news, this earth-shaking news that really challenges our core beliefs, it's a loss.
Mhm.
Whether it's not we haven't lost somebody else, but we've lost the old way of life.
That's right.
And we have to go that process of, getting past denial and anger and moving through bargaining and depression until we finally get to acceptance. And when we do that, when we can get to acceptance, then we can begin to look at how we can attack or go through or face this crisis or challenge. So that first part, we got to go through the grieving process to get to acceptance. Then what we really need to do is start looking at how can we develop a new perspective on things. And that's because when we may have gotten acceptance, but it's still causing a lot of stress. And
Mhm.
when we go into stress, high states of stress or distress, our brain goes into survival mode,
Okay.
and we can't access our creative resources, our
Mhm.
logical thinking. All we can feel are negative emotions. So all of the things that are our better selves that we need to bring to solving this challenge or crisis are blocked by the state of distress because it puts us in survival mode.
Right, right. So we understand that crisis and even some challenges can cause some doubt, uncertainty, and stress. Can you provide an overview of how the crisis cure methodology addresses this in more than just a common result or a condition of the crisis?
Certainly. Yeah, the framework of the crisis cure is 5 things, and the first is adopting a positive perspective on the situation.
Mhm.
How can we reframe it into, instead of being just a crisis that's going to hurt me, into a growth journey that I need to work through. So
Mhm.
we first frame it as a positive, in a positive light. Secondly, we need to make some decisions, when we decide that we're going to get a good result out of this, when we decide that it's a challenge, and we can have a better life on the backside, that's really invigorating and empowering and gives us a lot of motivation. But it's not just enough to decide; you have to commit. And then there are a whole bunch of other supporting decisions you need to be able to make, like, what do I need to learn? What support network do I need to develop? What resources am I going to need? Those kinds of things.
Mhm. Mhm.
And one more internal step before we start taking action is we need mindset, because
Mhm.
it's not going to be an easy journey. Number one, we've got to have the mindset that we are enough as a person. So kind of that self-esteem that I am capable, and I'm worthy, and I'm deserving.
Mhm.
Number two is the growth mindset, that there's no such thing as failure. It's only feedback and going to be a learning process. And then also focusing on progress rather than the ultimate goal. So we have a tendency as humans to always look at, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Well, you've made so much progress, and feel good about the progress you've made, because that's really what life is about, is making progress, not always achieving the end goal. Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then we need to take action, of course. What are the things we want to do? Standard types of things of goal setting. But if we have that ultimate future life or outcome that we're looking for in mind, the action will be inspired. Okay. We don't want to rely on just willpower, to get up and try to go exercise, after the New Year's resolution. That's the hardest thing, and that willpower goes away real fast. But if we can continually keep in mind what we want our future life to be like, then we'll wake up inspired and want to take action.
Mhm.
And then lastly, we're going to learn all these new things, new skills, new tools, and we're going to build a better life, but we have to make some focused effort in discovering what that new version of you is going to is going to look like, and what your life can be like. So that's really kind of the 5 steps through the process, and it
Oh,
can apply to a crisis, or it can apply to any kind of basic life transition you're going through.
mhm, mhm. Okay, so could we take an example then of those 5 tips or the 5 steps that you were talking about with something specific? I think what a lot of people can relate to at the moment is the loss of a certain type of lifestyle that they had before COVID. I think that's probably something that a lot of people can relate to. And then those people in my audience who are women who are approaching 60 or over 60, they can relate that to their lives. And also, my audience who are recovering from cancer treatment, they'd be able to relate as well. Can we take that, the basic loss theory that we are talking about, or the concept, and go through those 5 steps again?
Certainly. And let's talk about the difference between acceptance, radical acceptance. Okay.
Okay.
I was just listening to a podcast yesterday. The idea of acceptance is just accepting the situation, but radical acceptance takes it a step further, and it helps you frame it as as a growth opportunity. So not
Mhm.
only do I accept what this is an opportunity. This is happening for my benefit. Our Creator has given me this as a gift, and I can use this gift to be a better version of myself. So let's talk about that. So post COVID. Right. We're in a new work environment. You used to go into the office. Now you're working in a hybrid or completely remote. You're feeling isolated. You know, how do we frame it? Do we frame it as, oh, I'm stuck at home, I don't get to see anyone anymore? Or am I looking at this as a great opportunity? Oh, this is going to give me so much free time that I'm not commuting. I don't always have to be dressed fully nice. I can wear my shorts if I need to and still look good on camera or whatever. I don't have to be in the office 8 to 5. If I feel like doing something 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I can do that. So let's just reframe it. I'm now over 60. I'm 62 myself, so I know what this is like. My body's not doing the things that I used to be able to do, but I can still enjoy many things in life. And so with it, I feel like a fair amount of wisdom that comes with it too. So I can frame it as balancing my wisdom with, the physical thing that I still am able to do. And I know that the work I'm doing right now in my 60s is going to impact how I can live in the 80s.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
that's really important. Sure that I'm fully engaged in life, and I'm fully engaged in taking care of my health,
mhm.
because I want to have lifespan well into the 90s.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about I'm a cancer survivor. I've been through two rounds of cancer.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the first time was a little harder. I had to go through that grieving process. I didn't understand what it was going to be like.
Mhm,
And so, I remember finally getting to the point where I said, I'm going to beat this, and I'm going to be the healthiest version of me that I can be.
mhm,
And that's when things started going the right direction. Okay. So I had that perspective, and then I made that decision.
mhm.
Um, I've always been a personal development junkie throughout most of my life. So, working on the mindset things was not too hard for me, and that just propelled me into the action that I took. I didn't just do what the doctor said. I found naturopathic doctors, because the standard conventional medical approach is just to get you disease free, not to get
Mm,
you healthy. And so I
mm,
went and found a naturopathic physician, one of the best in my area, and learned what good health really looks like, and have been
mm,
working on that ever since. And so those are all the kinds of things, and I've just always kind of worked on, what does my next life look like. This is my encore career that I'm working working on. I still have a corporate job, but this is my passion of what my life looks like going forward in the future. So that's my discovering my new me. That's what it looks like for me,
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
and it's just going to be a matter of finding what really resonates with you, and being willing and courageous enough to make that pivot.
mhm. May I ask you about your second, recurrence or a second diagnosis of cancer? What effect did that have on what you had learned through the first part, cancer diagnosis, and all the great things that you did for yourself? You upped your game on making your body healthier, and you upped your game on your emotional wellness and your mental wellness. Um, could you share? Would you mind sharing how you handled that second diagnosis?
Certainly. It was I remember, I went in and for the routine check. I got my blood results, and I looked at it on the phone, and I knew something was wrong.
Oh,
And I was sitting in the room waiting for my doctor to come in, and she was, late, which was unusual. And she came in, and she was very nervous. And the interesting thing is, I was much calmer than she was.
that's strange, isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yeah, because I already had the mindset, and
yes.
I just needed to understand what we were dealing with.
Mm,
And once I did, I didn't have any problem getting to acceptance. I mean, I was in acceptance that day. And so I was able to start working again on, okay, what do we need to do? How do we get through it? What's the next steps? I started looking back and just trying to figure out, what potentially caused this. I did spend a little bit of time thinking, well, with COVID, I didn't get in for my regular follow-ups as often as I should have, and so it was delayed and was found a little bit late. If I had gotten in earlier, it would have been a smaller tumor and would have been a much easier thing to go through. But there's no use in playing that what if game or if only game, because
yeah,
it doesn't help. So
yeah.
I did spend a little bit of time thinking about that, but got to put it aside and move forward and stop worrying about it.
I thank you for sharing that, because for all of us in that club, it's a club we don't want to be in. And it is always the fear that we're going to have that message again. We've done
Yeah.
all this work so far that's got us this to where we have so-called recovered. We've done all that work, and to have another diagnosis come up, we all worry about that for sure. And like you were saying, through COVID, if we weren't visiting our doctor on a regular basis, we're thinking, what's going on inside that maybe I should know about, right? So I really appreciate and acknowledge that you're able to confidently explain that you went through a process again, and there was no what if, because you knew that wasn't going to help the situation, and the fact that you were
Right.
more calm than your doctor was. Not exactly funny, but it's comical when you think about it, right?
Yeah. Little irony
So,
there.
yeah, you're already there. You've already played that game. You know what you need to do to continue. So, Bruce, please share a pivotal moment when you recognized what fulfillment really looks like for you. You're in your 60s, so I would imagine you've thought about what is fulfillment for you going forward.
Yeah, and I think there are a number of times throughout my life when I discovered a little more about fulfillment from a career, fulfillment with a family and a relationship, those kinds of things. Um, uh, I do have to say that after my first round of cancer, I came out of it with all of this energy to do something bigger and more with my life, than just continue working my corporate job and retire.
Mhm.
That that picture in my mind was just, it was nothing, and so I started embarking on this idea of what could my next career, my encore career look like.
Good.
And so that's what's so perfect about your podcast, right? The encore, because that's where we are in life. And I've fiddled around a lot with how I started immediately looking at cancer coaching,
Mhm.
um, and that's okay. But I also have a strong marketing background, so I wanted to do a little more with that. And so I fiddled around for the past 4 or 5 years, and I say fiddled. I did get a PhD in that time frame. Okay, so while I was fiddling with the business, I did get a PhD in psychology
Good for
accomplished. So I
you.
appreciate that. Yes.
That's an
Um,
achievement.
but I found fulfillment in finding ways to take my wounds and turn them into wisdom, and my mess into a message to the world to help other people. And that's
Mm,
really what the crisis cure is all about, because
mhm,
you know there are many people that just don't have the right mindset or the right tools to deal with these kinds of crises, and they're
mhm.
just so common. I mean, it's almost impossible for an adult to go through their midlife or late midlife years and not face one kind of crisis like this.
That's right. That's right. I think we've all learned that, right? Yes.
Yeah,
So, Bruce, where can our audience reach you so that they can learn more about perhaps how you can help them through their crisis?
certainly. You can go to brucefleck.com, and
Mhm,
on the front page, you'll see that there is a crisis cure quiz, and it'll ask you some questions, 8 or 9 questions, just about your situation and your stress level and how you're coping with what's going on. And it
mhm,
may be that you're just going through a minor life transition and you're fine. But
mhm.
if you feel like you would like some help, you can also email me directly at bruce@brucefleck.com.
Good. Nice and easy. Bruce at brucefleck.com. That's great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, this has been a great conversation, and I just wish everyone the best. It's a great forum, and thank you so much for having me, Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, for my audience, I want to thank you for joining us today. As you can see, you can set a new course for fulfillment no matter where you are in a crisis. And sometimes it's, as I always say, it's not a do it yourself project. It's important for you to reach out to people like Bruce to help you so that you can be awesome at any age. Thank you again. Join me each week as I interview women and thought leaders like Bruce about finding fulfillment after the age of 60 and the joy that that can bring. And if you're interested in being a guest, please reach out to me. You can visit my website at patriciamuir.com. That's very easy, just name.com. Please read the weekly blog at patriciamuir.com/blog and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. Sunday mornings are for self-care, and hundreds of women and men, I have some men who sit with their favorite beverage to read my latest insights. I often refer to insights that I get from my guests like Bruce because their knowledge is so important to us. Their wisdom is so important to us as we approach the crossroads of our 60th birthday and the milestones beyond. It's exciting to know that we have more choices than ever. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.